What's going on, everybody? It's Carmine from Barmine Tech, and today we're going to be talking about PiHole V6. So if you didn't see PiHole V6 released recently, I figured today why not go over the new release and how to set it up and install the new version. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So first we're going to go over what's new, some of the change notes. We're going to go over how to update your current PiHole instance if you want to upgrade to V6. And we'll cover how to do a fresh install. So we're going to do all of that today. So let's get right into it. So the first thing, like I said, we're going to do is go over some of the details about PiHole V6. So I'm just over here on the official PiHole site, over in their blog. And you can see over here, there's introducing V6. So if we come over here, we have some of the details. So what they did was they integrated the REST API directly into the PiHole FTL, which from my understanding is like the API that uses to pull all the stats from your PiHole so you can see what's being blocked, what's not being blocked, and everything going through. It eliminates the need for light PD and PHP, and as they say, it lowers the installation footprint and helps with the performance. I'm not a programmer, so I don't really know all the details about that, but I'll take their word for it. And then they also talk about the API, how the query log is going to get a little better or whatever than that. Seems that they also are now leveraging Lua more, which has already been part of the system, but now they're going to be able to use it more. With the new updated V6, they're able to leverage the allow list more, so now you can also deny domains instead of just allowing them, or a little vice versa. And now you have more options to the configuration file. So I'll show you in the UI, but now you have a lot more control of where config files go, what they all are, and everything like that. So I'll show you that when we get to the UI, but it's pretty cool now. You have a lot of control over all the config files that go into PiHole. Of course, the user interface has been redesigned. There was a lot of new additions to it, and I'm really liking how it looks. It finally got a big overhaul that I haven't seen since I started using PiHole probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Now supports HTTPS, so you can generate your own certificates and use it that way. And of course, there's Docker support. And if you keep scrolling through over here, there is the release notes of all the different versions. So FTL, Web, Core, Docker. You can click through and read all these if you're interested. I'll have a link below to this blog post as well in the description. And then they just go over how to upgrade. So if you're either on bare metal or Docker, and then they just have some info for their Discord community or their official forum, it looks like, and then saying thank you for everything. So that's what's over here on the blog post. And if you come over here to their GitHub, it actually has the full changelog. So if you're really interested in reading through, you can read through here and you can see everything that was changed with its tags and everything else. So I actually saw this the other day. Jeff Gerlin was talking about on Twitter, or X, however you decide to refer to it. And I figured why not jump right into it and see what's going on. So I'm going to show you what the new PiHole V6 instance looks like, because I actually am running it in my house. And then we'll go over how to set it all up. So this is the actual updated version. You can see it defaulted to HTTPS over here in Firefox, and it's actually giving me a security warning, which is nice to see, because this wasn't something originally we got with PiHole because it did use port 80. I'm just going to log in really quick, and over here you can see this is the new interface. So at the core of it, it still is very similar. You can see down here, this is confirming that we are on V6 for all the parts of it, or for the core FTL and web interface. And over here on the left ribbon, you could really see the initial changes that were made. So we have some different designs over here for some of the tabs that break out. And we get a little bit of some different options. So we used to have some more tools over here, I believe, and now they've kind of consolidated them into other groups and some new features. So we're kind of going to go through that a little bit more, but this is just kind of a brief overview of what the new version is going to look like. So like I said previously, you can just do an in-place upgrade to your current PiHole that you're running, or you can do a new install. If you're going to do a new install, it's super simple. You're just going to pull the new install script that they have on their website. So you can just have like a Linux container or a VM if you want to use it, a Raspberry Pi, whatever you're going to use. You could just set up a little Linux machine on it and then just pull the install script, and it'll be able to pull V6, no problem. It'll prompt you through all the menus, and it's really the same as using the original PiHole install. If you are interested in the original PiHole install, I'll put a card up in the corner and you could check out one of my videos that I have on it. But I am going to show you how to do the upgrade, so we're going to do that right now. So this is my other PiHole instance. You can see if I scroll down that it's telling me there's updates available for all of the interfaces, and it gives me the command of PiHole tac up. So I do run 2 PiHole instances. As you can see, this one's PiHole 1, this is PiHole 2 that's running in V6. This one doesn't get as many queries because it's just how my router hits them, but this one is my primary, so I'm going to upgrade this one at the moment. The first thing we're going to want to do is come over to settings, and then we're going to come over to teleporter, and we're going to back up our config so we have everything in case anything happens in the in-place upgrade. We could always do a new install of PiHole and revert back to everything that we had. So the backup feature is just going to have a complete backup of everything in our PiHole, and you actually can see they have a restore feature, and we could select what we want to restore. I would typically want to restore everything from what I have, so that's what we're going to do if we need to. Having the backup is really good just in case anything happens. I did this yesterday. I didn't run into any issues, so I think we should be all good. But this is going to be our old PiHole that I'm working with today that we're going to work on upgrading. So I'm just going to come over to my Proxmox. I'm going to open up a console for this. And then, super simple, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. I'm just going to do a sudo apt update first, just to update the packages. And then I'm going to do a sudo apt upgrade. We're going to do tack Y so it just installs it. And it's pretty quick. I'm just upgrading the Linux packages on this machine just so we make sure everything's up to date. And it might make it a little bit easier for PiHole. So then we're going to do PiHole space tack up, if I could type it. And then this is going to start the upgrade for PiHole. So it's going to start giving you the normal like PiHole install scripts, and then you're going to see it's starting to start working. So transferring data, and now over here we get our first menu. So what this is telling us is that PiHole V6 has its own embedded web server, so LightPD is no longer needed unless you have a custom configuration. So in this case, you could opt out of disabling LightPD, and PiHole FTL will try to bind to an alternate port such as 8080. It's just asking if you want to disable LightPD. So pretty much unless you have a custom configuration for your PiHole, you should be good to disable. It is the recommended option, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click enter for the yes option. And then it's going to keep installing, so we'll be back when we either finish up or we get another menu. And not too much longer later, you can see over here that we're all up to date. This whole upgrade took maybe about 2-3 minutes in all, so pretty quick. And if I come back over here, you can see this is my PiHole instance that was running the older version. If I refresh it, it's going to take a second because everything's just kind of restarting. The web server is rebooting, which is fine. We're just going to give it a minute to come back up. So it has the login.php, but PHP is changed now, so we can just kind of refresh it. We should be able to hit this soon, and then here you go. So now we can see it redirected to the https/admin, similar to the login on the other PiHole. And now I'm just going to continue. I'm going to log in if nothing's changed with that. I'm just going to close out this Vault Ward and stuff. And now you can see over here that we're running the newest version of PiHole, which is V6. So now I'm going to go through some of the new features that I've come to find in V6. So over here, some of the new stuff we can see initially, like I was talking about earlier, is on the ribbon. We can see that we have some blocks indicating numbers. So it's just kind of breaking down like domains that are allowed or blocked. We have clients, so I have 2 clients that are listed in here, and I have 1 group. So because my other group is disabled, it's not going to show. If I turn it on, I wonder if it'll refresh. It does. Over here you can see now it shows 2 active groups. So if I turn that back off, you can see now it's only showing the 1 again. Clients, nothing's really changed. Domains are the same too. It's just going to go through what your enabled domains or your blocked domains are. Over here when we get to lists, this is where we're getting a little different. So the lists are still your ad lists that you're using from PiHole to block domains or malicious sites, stuff like that. However, in another section, you're going to be able to see, you can kind of narrow down what's being blocked based off these ad lists. And I'm going to show you when we get to there. So like this portion is still the same, but later on they added additional features to better, which was a really cool feature to have. Over here, we now have a new group for DNS control. I believe previously this was in tools or something different, so it's just the turning off the blocking option. So if you need to troubleshoot something, you could just turn off blocking. We come over to settings. They're pretty much all the same, except now like teleporter has its own tab. So if you need to export your config or you need to import a config, it's over here now instead of just in the base settings. We have system settings where we can see the system metrics. We have our DNS options where pretty much everything's similar. The one thing we are going to do over here is we're going to check off for advanced, and this is how we're going to get our advanced options to see the rest of the settings that you're probably looking for. You can see actually now that I checked off advanced or expert, you can see in the system settings that there is a lot more metrics, and we have some extra actions now we could start. So like I could disable the query login or restart the resolver. If I come over to DHCP, it's the same thing. It's just the normal stuff like for my DHCP pool if you run DHCP off your PiHole. And now we have its own tab now for web interfaces or the API. So now you have a little bit more control over the API, the login, stuff like that. So you could see you have your themes. There's advanced settings over here for how you want the API to format. Over here, the first option is to make the API output pretty or more easier for humans to read. I'm not sure if this was an original feature or not, but it's available now, as well as you can allow destructive actions via the API. So this would mean through the web portal, you could tell the system to reboot or anything like that. There also is two-factor that you can enable now. So for your web login, you can enable two-factor. So if you want domains, what I'm believing this is, if you want domains to be excluded from showing in the query log, you can put them in here. And now you could see your active sessions that are logged into your PiHole. So if you want to ensure that only you are logged in, you can. And you can see over here that this is my current session right here. Over here we have some privacy options. We can now manipulate the logs to have more privacy in mind of it. So we can change the logs so they either don't show anything or less data available. This might have been something that was previously available, but now that it has its own tab in the settings group, that it's more apparent that it's here. We already talked about teleporter. We have our local DNS record, so if you're going to run local DNS through the PiHole, you can over here. And then we have all settings. So this is where things start to change a little bit more. So we just have some more DNS server settings. So we have a bunch of configurables. I'm going to leave default because I think that's probably my best option at the moment. We have our DHCP server settings. A new option that we have over here is for network time sync for NTP or network time protocol. It's just giving you an option of how you can control the NTP for the PiHole server. We have our resolver settings, which we've had previously, but now we have some settings about the database that PiHole is using, so you can configure those over here if you want. We have configurables for the web server and the API, and now over here where I was talking about earlier about we can see where all the config files live for PiHole. This is the tab over here where file locations. We can see where all of the files for PiHole go, whether it's the database, the gravity database, the temp folder. We can see log files. You can take PCAPs, so you can see where the PCAPs will live. I mean there's options for a lot of different files that we previously didn't have through the GUI. We have some miscellaneous settings that nothing too crazy that jumps out. Just some more configurables that I'm probably going to leave default at the time. And then we have our debug. So they added a little bit more for the debug, where in the past we didn't have all these options if you had to troubleshoot what was going on. And now you could do so right through here through this debug tab. That's all the settings group. And now if we move over to tools, we have similar. We have the diagnosis. So it's just like an error log, so you can see what's going on. And now we actually can look through our log files, which I don't believe we had this previously. But you can kind of see it gives you an option to read through like the PiHole log, the FTL log, and the web server log. So you can see like now I can see my logins over here. We always had our option to update gravity, and now this was another one that I was talking about earlier. We could look through the ad list to see stuff that's getting caught up. So like if I want to see if MSN is going to be blocked, I could use partial matching and I could search, and it's going to search through my ad list, and it's going to tell me, hey, this domain's being blocked. So you could see partially it's hitting on all of these. You could uncheck the use partial matching, and it'll tell you that it's not being directly blocked, but the subdomains are. So we could search barmindtech.com. It's not being blocked, luckily. So shout out to PiHole for not blocking my site. Well, that's another new feature that they added, which I think is really cool, because when you're trying to access sites and you're trying to identify whether it's your PiHole blocking it or not, you could dive a little deeper and see through here, other than just disabling PiHole to see if it fixes it. Now you can see what ad lists are hitting. Another option we got was the interfaces. So now we can see what interfaces PiHole is using, and just straightforward stuff. And then we have our network, which is just the network devices coming through. Again, this was something that we previously had in PiHole as well. And then finally, we have our donate option. So we got a lot of new features in PiHole V6. I'm really excited for this update. I think this was the update that we've all been waiting for PiHole. Like I said, I've been using PiHole since about 2019, I want to say. So we're coming up on about 5-6 years, and it's really nice to see an overhaul to like the web UI, more options added, more configurables, just more features all overall. So really awesome job to the dev team that was able to push this out and get this update working. They were talking about it for a long time, and I'm really happy to see that they finally got it out. If you need any of the information for PiHole V6, I'll have all the links below, such as the blog post, the GitHub post with the changelog, and the install site, as well as I mentioned the card for the original PiHole install. I would assume that the current install is going to be pretty much the same. It's just going to pull a new version. I'll have a link down below if you want to watch through that as well. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. I'll have a link to all the gear in my home lab that I use below. If you ever want to check any of it out, maybe get it for yourself. I'll have a link to the Discord server if you want to join up and we could chat in there about projects or anything else. And as always, I want to thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next video. And as my buddy Dom would say, hack till it hurts.